The silver ships appeared in Earth's sky like falling stars, but these stars moved with purpose. Admiral Kim Soo-jin pressed her face against the window of the space station, watching the alien fleet arrange itself in perfect rows. Each ship was 3 times larger than Earth's biggest warship, and they gleamed like mirrors in the sunlight. "Ma'am, they're sending a message," said Lieutenant Park Min-ho, his hands shaking as he worked the controls. He was young, maybe 25, and had never seen anything like this. None of them had. Kim walked to the communication panel. She had gray hair and stern eyes, the kind of woman who had spent 30 years in space and trusted her gut more than politicians. "Put it through," she said. The screen flickered to life, showing a tall alien with smooth blue skin and 4 arms. He wore flowing robes that seemed to move on their own, and his voice was like honey poured over warm bread. "Greetings, people of Earth," the alien said, bowing deeply. "I am High Counselor Zarthik of the Veltharian Empire. Come in peace, representing the Galactic Union of Peaceful Worlds." Kim felt something cold in her stomach. The alien's words were beautiful, but his eyes were calculating. She had seen that look before in the eyes of sharks. Down on Earth, President Lee Jae-sung stood in the United Nations building, surrounded by world leaders who could barely contain their excitement. The Korean president was a small man with kind eyes, but Kim knew he was too trusting for his own good. "We have traveled far to meet you," Zarthik continued, his image now broadcast to every screen on Earth. "Your species shows great promise. We wish to offer you membership in our peaceful alliance." The alien painted pictures with his words. He spoke of medicines that could cure any disease, of clean energy that would end pollution forever, of protection from the dark races that prowled the galaxy like wolves. The world leaders leaned forward, hungry for these promises. "All we ask in return," Zarthik said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "is friendship, cultural exchange, the sharing of knowledge between our peoples." Kim watched the alien ships through her telescope while the speech continued. Something was wrong. The ships were arranged in what looked like a peaceful formation, but Kim had studied military tactics her whole life. She recognized the pattern. It was a battle formation, disguised as something harmless. "Lieutenant Park," she said quietly, "count the ships again." Park's fingers flew over his keyboard. 57 vessels, ma'am, just like before?" "No," Kim said, adjusting the telescope. "Look at the shadows. Hey, there are more ships hiding behind the big ones." Park looked again, this time more carefully. His face went pale. "You're right. Count at least 20 more. They're using some kind of cloaking technology." Kim felt her heart sink. If the aliens were hiding ships, they weren't here for peaceful purposes. She grabbed her phone and called the president's office, but his secretary said he was too busy to take calls. The same thing happened when she called the defense ministry. On the screen, Zarthik was finishing his speech. "We will establish small cultural centers in your major cities. These will be places where our peoples can meet and learn from each other. We ask only for permission to set up a few mining operations on your moon and nearby asteroids to help support our peaceful mission." The world leaders nodded eagerly. President Lee stood up, his voice full of emotion. "On behalf of all humanity, we welcome you to our solar system. This is the beginning of a new age for Earth." Kim watched the celebration on the news and felt sick. She had seen this before in history books, when powerful nations came to help weaker ones. It never ended well for the weaker ones. She called her old friend, General Nam Ki-ho, who commanded Earth's Space Defense Forces. "General, we need to talk," she said. "Kim, this is a historic day," Nam replied. "The aliens are offering us technology beyond our wildest dreams. They're also hiding warships," Kim said. "I've been watching them. This isn't a peaceful visit." There was silence on the other end. Then Nam sighed. "Even if you're right, what can we do? Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Kim looked out at the silver ships again. They were beautiful and terrible, like poison flowers. "We prepare," she said. "We learn everything we can about them, and we prepare for the worst." As the celebrations continued on Earth below, Kim began making quiet phone calls to people she trusted. Scientists who could study alien technology, engineers who could build weapons, Soldiers who understood that sometimes the greatest threats came wrapped in pretty packages. The aliens had made their first mistake. They thought humans were naive fools who would believe anything. But some humans, like Admiral Kim Soo-jin, had learned to recognize wolves even when they wore sheep's clothing. The game had begun. And Earth's survival depended on playing it better than their allies expected. 6 months had passed since the Veltharians arrived. Their tall glass buildings now stood in every major city on Earth. The aliens called them cultural exchange centers. But Dr. Choi Hai-jin thought they looked more like fancy prisons with their smooth walls and no windows. Choi worked in the Seoul Center, studying the alien medical machines. She was a small woman with thick glasses and careful hands, the kind of doctor who noticed everything. The Veltharians had given her access to their healing devices. Machines that could fix broken bones in minutes and cure diseases that had killed humans for thousands of years. Amazing, isn't it? Said Veltharian scientist Kethmer, watching. Choi examined a scanner. He looked like Zarthik, but smaller, with silver markings on his blue skin. This device can repair any damage to your DNA. Choi nodded and smiled, but inside she felt worried. The machine was too powerful, too perfect. Nothing in nature was perfect without a reason. She secretly took pictures of everything, hiding tiny cameras in her medical bag every day. Humans came to the centers seeking miracle cures. Cancer patients walked in dying and left healthy. Paralyzed people stood up and walked. The aliens asked for nothing except signatures on papers, agreements that let them mine rocks from the moon and asteroids. Such small prices for such great gifts, Kethmer always said with his sharp-toothed smile. But Choi noticed something else. People who visited the centers changed in small ways. They became quieter, more agreeable. They stopped asking difficult questions about the aliens. When Choi mentioned this to other doctors, they just shrugged and said the people were probably just grateful. Then the sickness started. It began with children who lived near the centers. They developed strange fevers that lasted exactly 3 days. Alien doctors said it was normal, something they called bioharmonization adjustment. The children got better, but they were different afterward. They sat quietly in school, never argued with teachers, and always obeyed their parents without question. Choi collected blood samples from these children, telling their parents she was checking to make sure they stayed healthy. Late at night in her hidden laboratory, she studied the samples under a microscope. What she found made her hands shake. The children's DNA had been changed, not damaged, changed on purpose. Someone had rewritten parts of their genetic code like editing a book. The changes were in the parts of DNA that controlled how the brain worked, especially the parts that made humans stubborn and independent. Choi worked for weeks, comparing samples from before and after the children got sick, but the pattern was clear. The aliens were making humans more obedient, one person at a time. She tried to call other scientists, but the phones at the centers were monitored. She tried to send emails, but the aliens controlled the internet connections. Every time she tried to warn someone, her messages disappeared or never arrived. Finally, Choi decided to publish her research in a medical journal. She wrote everything down: the DNA changes, the behavioral differences, the pattern of infection. She had proof that the aliens were changing humans into something else. The night before her paper was supposed to be published, 3 men in black suits came to her laboratory. They looked human, but moved too smoothly, like dancers or predators. "Dr. Choi," said the tallest one, "you've been working very hard. Perhaps too hard. You should rest." Choi's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm fine. Just finishing some research." "We know about your research," the second man said. "It contains errors. Dangerous errors that could frighten people unnecessarily." The third man stepped closer. "The Veltharians are concerned about your health. They think you need treatment for paranoid delusions." Choi realized she had maybe 5 minutes before. They took her away. She pretended to pack her papers, while secretly uploading all her research to a hidden server that her friend had built years ago. The upload bar crawled slowly across her screen. 60%, 70%, 80%. "Doctor, please come with us," the first man said, no longer trying to sound friendly. 90%, 95%, 100%. Choi smiled and erased her computer. "I suppose I am rather tired," she said. They took her away that night. The next morning, the medical journal received a message saying Dr. Choi had suffered a nervous breakdown and withdrawn her paper. The Seoul Cultural Exchange Center announced that she had gone to a special hospital for treatment, but Choi's research was safe on the hidden server, waiting for someone to find it. Meanwhile, Captain Han Dong-wook was having his own problems. He ran a secret team of engineers who were trying to understand how alien technology worked. They had managed to steal small pieces of equipment from the center's computer chips, power cells, communication devices, working in hidden bunkers beneath military bases. Han's team slowly figured out how the alien machines operated. The technology was incredibly advanced, but it followed rules that humans could understand. More importantly, it had weaknesses. "We can crack their communication system," Han told his team. "We can listen to what they're really saying to each other." Engineers worked 18 hours a day, taking apart alien devices and rebuilding them. They were preparing for something they all feared was coming, the day when Earth would need to fight for its survival. The storm hit the Yellow Sea without warning, turning the dark waters into mountains of foam and fury. Commander Yoon Sora stood on the deck of her rescue ship, watching lightning split the sky. She had been hunting for 3 days, following the trail of debris from what the aliens claimed was a minor technical malfunction. "There," shouted Lieutenant Kim Bioram, pointing through the rain. "Something big, 2 kilometers ahead." Yoon raised her binoculars and saw it. A Veltharian ship, half submerged and listing badly to one side, was much smaller than the massive vessels orbiting Earth, but still twice the size of her rescue boat. Strange blue lights flickered along its hull like dying fireflies. "Are we sure we want to do this?" asked Bioram nervously. The aliens said they would handle their own rescue. Yoon had been asking herself the same question. Admiral Kim had given her secret orders. If any alien ship ever crashed, she was to reach it first, no matter what. Kim believed the aliens were hiding something, and a damaged ship might reveal their secrets. "International law requires us to help ships in distress," Yoon said loudly, knowing the aliens might be listening. Then she whispered to her crew, "Remember what we discussed? Take pictures of everything." The rescue took 6 hours. The ship was badly damaged, its hull cracked open like a broken egg. Most of the crew was dead, but 3 Veltharians survived, including one who called himself Science Officer Velcock. "You must not enter the ship," Velcock said, weakly, as Yoon's medical team treated his injuries. "It contains dangerous materials. Wait for our people to arrive." But Yoon had already sent her boarding team inside. What they found made her stomach turn. The ship was full of glass containers, each one holding samples of human blood, tissue, and DNA. Thousands of them, labeled with numbers and symbols. In the ship's computer room, Sergeant Oh Min-suk found something even worse. Detailed files on every human who had visited the cultural exchange centers. "Commander, you need to see this," Oh whispered into his radio. He had found a large display screen showing a map of Earth. Red dots marked every major city, with numbers beside them. The numbers were going up slowly, like a countdown. Yoon made her way through the flooded corridors to the computer room. The alien technology was still working, despite the crash. She watched the screen in horror as it showed detailed plans for something called Phase 3, full implementation. The plans were written in the alien language, but there were pictures that made the meaning clear. Humans being loaded onto ships, cities being emptied, Earth being divided into zones marked, resource extraction and processing centers. "Take everything," Yoon ordered her team. "Every computer, every file, every piece of equipment that still works." By the time the alien rescue ships arrived, Yoon's team had stripped the wreck clean. They told the Veltharians they had only found dead crew members and damaged equipment. The aliens seemed to believe them. Back on shore, Yoon delivered the stolen data to Admiral Kim. The old woman's face grew darker with each file she read. "It's worse than we thought," Kim said finally. "They've done this before. Look at these records. 47 worlds conquered using the same method. They call it peaceful integration." The files showed the pattern clearly. First, the aliens would arrive offering gifts and friendship. Then they would study the local population, learning their weaknesses. Finally, they would either change the people genetically or simply replace them with more obedient versions. The DNA modifications Dr. Choi discovered, Kim continued, they're not just making people obedient, they're making them unable to resist. Within one generation, humans would lose the ability to fight back. The evidence was overwhelming. The aliens had been collecting genetic samples from every human who entered their centers. They had detailed maps of Earth's military bases, cities, and resources. They had even been practicing human speech patterns, learning to imitate individual people. Kim knew she had to act fast. She sent coded messages to trusted allies around the world, generals, scientists, and politicians who had been quietly preparing for this day. Within hours, secret teams were raiding alien facilities across the globe. What they found confirmed their worst fears. Hidden beneath each cultural exchange center was a military base. The aliens had been building an invasion force right under humanity's nose, using technology that made Earth's weapons look like toys. The next morning, High Counselor Zarthik appeared on every screen on Earth, but this time his honey-sweet voice was gone. His face was twisted with rage, and his four arms gestured angrily as he spoke. "You foolish primitives," he snarled. "We offered you a peaceful transition to a better existence. We would have let you live as useful servants, but you have chosen to resist." President Lee tried to interrupt, but Zarthik cut him off. "You think you can fight us? We have conquered civilizations 1,000 times more advanced than yours. Pathetic weapons cannot harm our ships. Your armies will fall before our technology." The alien's image flickered, showing massive warships uncloaking around Earth. There were hundreds of them, each one bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. "You have 24 hours to surrender," Zarthik said. "We will take your world by force. Those who resist will be eliminated. Those who submit will be allowed to serve." The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. The aliens had finally shown their true faces, and now humanity would learn what they were really capable of when their backs were against the wall. The sun was just rising over Seoul when the first alien ships began their attack. Lieutenant Colonel Jung Min-soo crouched behind a concrete barrier, watching the silver vessels descend like angry wasps. He had been awake for 3 days straight, preparing the city for this moment. Remember, he spoke into his radio. Let them get close. Want them to think we're helpless? The Veltharians had expected to find panicked humans running in terror. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. It was too quiet, too easy. But they were arrogant from conquering so many worlds, and they walked right into the trap. The first alien soldiers stepped out of their ships and began marching toward the city center. They wore shiny armor and carried weapons that shot beams of light. They looked invincible. Then the buildings exploded. Jung's engineers had spent months rigging every major structure with explosives. As the aliens advanced, entire blocks collapsed. On top of them, the survivors found themselves trapped in narrow alleys where their superior technology meant nothing. "Now," Jung shouted. Human soldiers appeared from hidden positions, firing weapons that no alien had ever seen before. Captain Han's team had spent the last year studying crashed alien technology, and they had learned to turn it against its creators. The bullets that struck Veltharian armor carried electromagnetic pulses that shut down their power systems. In the underground tunnels beneath Seoul, Dr. Choi Hyejin worked frantically in her secret laboratory. She had escaped from the alien hospital 2 weeks ago and had been preparing for this day ever since. The genetic modifications the aliens had made to humans could be reversed, but only if people took her cure within the first few hours of battle. "The aerosol dispersal system is ready," reported her assistant, Nurse Park SEO Young. They had built devices that could spray the cure into the air, reaching thousands of people at once. "Release it," Choi ordered. "Every district, every building. Save as many as we can." Above ground, the battle raged through the streets. The aliens had expected to fight primitive humans with simple weapons. Instead, they faced an enemy that had learned their weaknesses and exploited them. Ruthlessly, Zheng's soldiers used the city itself as a weapon. They led alien squads into subway tunnels, then flooded them with electrified water. They collapsed parking garages onto alien vehicles. They turned every intersection into a killing zone. These humans fight like demons. One alien commander reported to his ship, "They show no mercy, no hesitation. They would rather die than surrender." The aliens were right. Humans didn't just fight to survive. They fought to make their enemies pay for every step, every breath, every moment of life. When an alien squad captured a human hospital, the doctors and nurses fought back with medical equipment turned into weapons. When alien ships bombed a school, the teachers and students emerged from the rubble, carrying guns and homemade explosives. At sea, Commander Yoon Sora led a desperate naval battle against the alien fleet. Her ships were outgunned and outnumbered, but she had one advantage. She understood how alien technology worked. "Target their communication arrays," she ordered her crews. "Blind them first, then hit them with everything we have." Yoon's destroyers launched modified missiles that Captain Han's team had designed. Instead of exploding, they attached themselves to alien ships and began jamming their systems. The mighty Valtharian warships suddenly found themselves deaf and blind, unable to coordinate their attacks. That's when Yoon struck with her secret weapon. 3 months ago, her teams had salvaged alien vessels from the ocean floor and rebuilt them with human modifications. The aliens never saw them coming. "Fire everything," Yoon commanded from the bridge of her captured alien ship. "Show them what happens when they threaten our world." The battle spread across the globe. In New York, human soldiers fought from skyscraper to skyscraper, using alien energy weapons they had stolen and modified. In London, scientists released Dr. Choi's biological weapons into the air, causing alien troops to collapse from engineered diseases that targeted their unique biology. In Tokyo, engineers had built giant electromagnetic cannons that could knock alien ships out of the sky. In Moscow, soldiers had learned to hack alien armor and turn it against its wearers. The Valtharians began to panic. They had conquered 47 worlds, but none of those species had fought like this. Most civilizations surrendered after losing a few cities. Humans just got angrier. "They're not behaving rationally, High Counselor," Zarthik reported to his fleet commanders. "They should surrender to preserve their lives. Instead, they fight harder when we kill them." "Perhaps we should negotiate," suggested one commander. Zarthik snarled. "Increase the bombardment. Break their will to fight." But the aliens didn't understand what they were facing. Every human city that burned only made the survivors more determined. Every family killed only created more enemies. The Valtharians had made the mistake of thinking humans were like the other species they had conquered, afraid to die, willing to surrender for the chance to live as slaves. They were wrong. Humans were willing to die, but they were even more willing to kill. And they were very, very good at it. As the first day of battle ended, the aliens realized they were not fighting a war of conquest. They were fighting for their own survival against an enemy that had learned to use their own weapons against them. The tables had turned. The Earth's fury was just beginning. 3 years had passed since the Valtharians first attacked Earth, and now Admiral Kim Soo-jan stood on the bridge of a captured alien warship, watching enemy planets burn in the distance. The ship had once belonged to High Counselor Zarthik himself, but now it flew under human command, its weapons turned against its former masters. "Ma'am, we're receiving surrender requests from 12 more Valtharian colonies," reported Lieutenant Park Min-ho, now a seasoned veteran with scars on his face and steel in his voice. "They're offering to provide information about other slave worlds in exchange for mercy." Kim nodded grimly. The word mercy had taken on new meaning since the war began. Human mercy now meant quick death instead of slow suffering. The aliens had taught humanity many things, but kindness was not among them. "Accept their surrender," Kim ordered. "Scan their cities first. If we find any human prisoners or genetic samples, treat them as hostile." The war had turned in ways nobody expected. The Valtharians had conquered 47 worlds over. Thousands of years, always using the same strategy: arrive peacefully, study the locals, and either modify them genetically or replace them entirely. It had worked perfectly until they met humanity. Dr. Choi Hai-jin had been the key to their victory. After escaping alien capture, she had spent months developing biological weapons that attacked Veltharian DNA specifically. The aliens discovered, too late, that their own genetic modifications made them vulnerable to diseases that left other species untouched. The plague ships are reporting complete success in the Veltharian home system, came another report. All military installations have been neutralized. The civilian population is requesting terms for survival. Kim felt no satisfaction at the news. The biological weapons Dr. Choi had created didn't just kill, they spread from alien to alien, like wildfire, targeting the very modifications that made the Veltharians superior to other species. It was poetic justice, but it was also genocide. Captain Han Dong-wook had also played his part. His reverse-engineered technology had given humanity weapons that were better than anything the aliens possessed. Human ships now moved faster, hit harder, and defended better than the vessels of their former would-be conquerors. "Admiral, we're getting communications from across the galaxy," reported Communications Officer Lee Soo-jin. "The enslaved worlds are rising up. They're using our broadcast signals to coordinate attacks against their Veltharian overlords." Kim had been broadcasting the truth about the Veltharians to every world in the galaxy. The aliens had lied to everyone, claiming they were peaceful explorers bringing civilization to primitive worlds. In reality, they were parasites who consumed entire civilizations. The broadcasts had included detailed information about Veltharian weaknesses, biological vulnerabilities, and technological flaws. Worlds that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly had the knowledge they needed to fight back. "The Zephyrians are reporting that they've liberated their entire star system," Lee continued. "They're asking if they can join our fleet." "Tell them to focus on their own freedom first," Kim replied. "We'll discuss alliances later." The truth was, Kim didn't trust anyone anymore. The Veltharians had taught humanity that the galaxy was full of predators wearing friendly masks, would never again believe in peaceful aliens bearing gifts. On the main screen, another Veltharian world surrendered. The planet's surface was covered with the geometric patterns of their cities, but many of those cities were now empty. Dr. Choi's biological weapons had done their work well. "Ma'am, we're receiving a priority transmission," Park announced. "It's from the Veltharian homeworld. High Counselor Zarthik wants to speak with you directly." Kim had been expecting this moment. Put him through. The alien's face appeared on the screen, but he looked nothing like the confident diplomat who had first visited Earth. Zarthik's blue skin was pale and mottled, his forearms shaking with disease. His eyes held the desperate look of a dying predator. "Admiral Kim," he rasped, "I offer you the surrender of all remaining Veltharian forces. In exchange, I ask only that you spare our children. They are innocent of our crimes." Kim studied the alien's face for a long moment. "You offered us partnership once," she said quietly. "You told us about the wonders of galactic civilization. You promised us a place among the stars." "We were wrong," Zarthik admitted. "We thought you were like the others, weak, afraid, willing to trade freedom for survival. We did not understand what we were facing." "And what were you facing?" Kim asked. The alien's laugh was bitter and filled with pain. "We were facing ourselves. You became what we pretended to be, conquerors who showed no mercy to those who threatened their people. The difference is, you were honest about it." Kim ended the transmission without another word. There would be no mercy for the Veltharians, no second chances, no negotiations. They had taught humanity that the galaxy respected only strength, and humanity had learned the lesson well. Across the galaxy, other species watched in fascination and terror as the humans systematically dismantled the Veltharian Empire. Some species cheered, grateful to be free of their oppressors. Others trembled, wondering if humanity would be satisfied with destroying one enemy or if they would continue expanding their reach. The answer came when human fleets began patrolling the major trade routes, offering protection to merchant ships. In exchange for information about potential threats, the galaxy had a new apex predator. It was learning to hunt. Earth had joined the galactic community, but not as the naive junior member the Veltharians had expected. humanity had emerged. As the galaxy's newest dominant force, and the stars themselves had begun to tremble at their approach,